of imperialism. Okay, so let me begin with, you know, those wonderful, one of the greatest contributions, one of the few of United States to world culture, these excellent jokes, medical jokes. First bad news, then good news. Like, doctor tells you, bad news, we discovered you have cancer, you will be dead in 2 months. So what is then the good news? We also discovered you have Alzheimer and you will forget bad news before you reach home. So we do something like that. And I will start with bad news. You remember, Alex, we were at a round table in London and you told us your dream, that you would like to live in a society where communism is just a bad memory present in museums. Well, sorry, that's my point. Yes, capitalism. Unfortunately, as you know, in this city and in some other cities, unfortunately, the only museums of this kind that we have today are precisely museums of communism. So isn't it something crazy in the idea of how can we reverse the situation? We can. Why? First, the bad news. 3-4 years ago, did you notice how it was, for me, always suspicious, this making fun at Fukuyama, who that idiot who thought the history is over. But practically all of us, we were Fukuyamaists. We were asking, what were we demanding? Better ecological care, gay marriages, and so on. But all this vaguely within the liberal democratic system. Why? Now I come to more crucial points. First, I claim that, as it was already hinted by you in very nice way, apropos of that example of the states don't following their own rules, I claim economy, liberal economy, neoliberalism, we should always bear in mind this, is today not the reality, it's the ideology. You know, we have to emphasize this. The first rule of political debate is don't concede to the enemy even what he claims to be. Tell me one big successful capitalist today state which is neoliberal. United States, are you kidding me? China, Singapore, in all of them state intervenes brutally with incredible sums of money and so on. Who is today neoliberal? Maybe a little bit your idiot, not you, David Cameron, no, which is why United Kingdom is the slowest in catching up. Neoliberalism is an ideology meant to put pressure on others, especially on third world states, where neoliberalism brutally breaks their own rules. Years ago, I heard a wonderful report on CNN, even there is something good, of Mali. Their cotton industry is in ruins. And their minister said, look, United States are given more money to support their cotton farmers than the entire state budget of Mali. They said, we don't need socialist help. Just if United States were to obey a little bit their own liberal rules, it would be so. You see, again, neoliberalism is, and the same should go at all levels. When you hear about family values, your first reaction is probably, oh, this is some Christian obscurantism. What about other alternative forms, gay marriages? Of course, I'm for them. But I think in this way we concede too much to the enemy. For example, in the United States, my God, every sociological, even superficial research will tell you, Reaganomics did more to destroy family values than all the, I mean it ironically, perverted gays or whatever together. They don't give them. The same goes, now I make a step problematic for some of you, Judeo-Christian legacy. We like to feel guilty, we so-called European left, and we always have to say, yeah, European legacy, crime, colonialism. Wait a minute, I would say, there are wonderful things in Judeo-Christian legacy. When Christ says, if you don't hate your father, mother, you are not my follower. For me, mother, father here stand for the entire social hierarchy. The idea of original Christianity is an egalitarian community outside hierarchic order is possible, and so on. So when we hear today a European legacy is threatened, No, don't say, yeah, but we were imperialists and so on. Say, who are you to speak about European legacy, about what is really great in European legacy, egalitarian tradition and so on. For me, Europe, in which, I don't know, in Austria, Haider is in power, in France, Le Pen, that would have been the end of the true European legacy. Again, don't even give to the enemy, don't concede too much at the first point already. So, next point. What is difficult for me today with capitalism? Because, you know, capitalism is, as it were, tricky in its functioning of ideology. Because of this radical, let's call it a naturalization of economy as ideology, and we get it everywhere. Did you notice how education is more and more defined, that's the whole point of Bologna school reform, in the terms of a market operation? It's no longer at least the old honest bourgeois patriotism where you have your private interest but you go to school to learn universal value. No, education is becoming this always dynamic private engagement, I won't put you this clear, and so on and so on. It's education. The state itself is more and more sold to us as a neoliberal operation, like, you know, different parties are like companies offering us services, and voting is like buying on the market. Even sex. I will not go into this direction, but did you notice how we are more and more returning to pre-modern tradition of arranged marriages only? It's not parents, it's agencies who are doing it, and what does this mean? Horrible things. Did you notice, for example, it's not a joke, did you notice how in the last James Bond film, Quantum of Solace, which is incidentally relatively left for Hollywood, James Bond basically saves Evo Morales' regime in Bolivia, but did you notice James Bond where at the end there is no sex? Did you notice that in the lowest of today's popular culture, Dan Brown, no sex? Why? I think that today's hegemonic subjectivity is getting so narcissistic, and this can even be masked as political correctness, that even passionate love exposing to the other is considered risky. There was a marriage agency in the United States which had, I noticed it, an excellent publicity. They said, we will enable you to be in love without falling. Like, you know, the idea of falling in love, you are shocked, it's too much. Everything must be prearranged and so on and so on. Through, of course, marketing mechanisms. That's how you work with these marriage agencies and so on and so on. So, the problem of today's capitalism is, did you notice how, for example, with ecology and so on, how today's capitalism tries to present itself as ethical? Let me now mention a paradox. Did you notice how today, more and more, we almost have an overload of anti-capitalism, but a false, moralistic one. You cannot open a newspaper without reading this company is polluting the environment, that company is employing slave labor, and so on and so on. But it's all done in a moralistic way. There are some corrupted guys there who, and we get rid of them, and the system will function, and so on. Beware of this moralism. You know where the left was the victim of this moralism? Let me shock you a little bit. You know, this debate a month ago, even now, is the NATO intervention in Libya justified? I was horrified how a great majority of left liberal comments that I read were at this moralistic level of suspicion. Is it that we really intervened there just to help the victims, suffering people, or were there darker motives, economic, political there? A true leftist should be even ashamed to ask this question. Of course there are always answers. The problem is this. Here we get this arm. And here I like analysis. If somebody convinces me that in Libya we have elements of genuine emancipatory movement, I'm not sure of that. That's the problem. Then I would say give them all the arms you can, because probably if they truly are this, 10 years from now they will use it against NATO itself. No, I mean, you know, the true question is not this moralistic question, were they ethically pure, those who decided. The true question is who and for what will use these arms. My God, let's get rid of this moralism. Then you will end up with Starbucks, my old example. You know what happens in Starbucks? It's an ingenious operation. Today's ideology at its best. The trick of Starbucks is that you pay their cappuccino more because, as they told you all that bullshit, you know, 1% goes to starving Guatemala children, 1% for forests. In other words, They tell you, you don't have to feel bad for consumerism because you pay more so that the social solidarity price is included into the price that you pay. So the more you consume, the more you are. So things are tricky with today's ideology. But why talk about communism? Good reasons. First reason, there are, it is, I think, absolutely clear, more and more clear signs that there is a whole series of problems. I've listed them in my books. I don't have to go into them now. Ecology, biogenetics, the problem of intellectual property, the horror called Bologna reform, the change of higher education into a factory producing experts. That's their ideal. Their ideal is, as a French minister explained to me in a debate, cars are burning in the suburb of Paris, he told me. Now we need you intellectuals. Psychologists tell us how to control the crowds, urbanists how to plan the cities. So this is their ideal. We should become experts solving the problems the way they are defined by those in power. No, that's it. If you worry about European legacy, this is the end of Europe. The first thing of a true intellectual is, yes, 2 minutes, yes, but in a non-linear sense. The first thing about true intellectual life is to question the very way the problem is posed. Okay, I'm not going to read just quickly the final points. Then we have the problem of so-called Asian capitalism. Our definitely not an ally, Peter Sloterdijk, nonetheless said something wonderful once. He said that if you can imagine a person to whom 100 years from now they will be building monuments, it will probably Lee Kuan Yew, you know, Singapore, the inventor of authoritarian capitalism. And that's what's happening today. Let's give to the devil what belongs to the devil. Up to a certain point, capitalism did need, more or less, democracy. I claim this is the true danger today. That marriage is dissolving today. We are now getting capitalist, that's the true bad news. We are now getting capitalist societies, even more dynamic, productive, destructive than our Western, who function perfectly without democracy. So what to do here? We have these all movements, I agree, Egypt, Spain, Greece, and so on and so on. But now, just to conclude, a little bit more serious thing I want to say. My God, you know what's the problem for me? Here I share your goals, but when you try to operationalize them, like, you know, I don't like so much that big moment, Tahrir Square, we were all crying, solidarity. What interests me is the day after. You know that Gramsci, and here I hope we agree, remember where Gramsci was publishing his text before he was arrested? In a journal called Il Nuovo Ordine, the New Order. Tragically, years after, this phrase was totally hegemonized by the right wing. If you say today, New Order, we know where you stand. Maybe the time is for the left to regain this. The problem is the day after. The true fight is going on now in Egypt. Friends are telling me horrible, you know, when you read in the news, new clashes between Coptic Christians and Muslims, friends whom I totally trust, who are not some crazy Marxists like us, good liberals, are telling me everybody knows there. This is done by Mubarak agents again and again. The terrible fight is going now to contain, to steer what went on in Egypt. This is the true struggle, not just the big things officially happening and so on, or even in Spain. Today, or a couple of days ago, I read the program that they made, this democracy now, real democracy now. But you know, here I see a problem. Okay, we want beyond capitalism. What does it concretely mean? You know, capitalism is, as you pointed out, good, not just a system privatizing commons, it's also a network of social relations. And as it was clear to Marx, as such, it also organizes production. What alternative modes do we have here? This is what makes me sad. For example, if you read the manifesto of the Spanish striking workers, what you find there is solidarity, right to work, blah, blah, blah. Now, just to provoke you, I will tell you something terrifying. I read all their points. I claim every honest fascist would subscribe all of them. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying they are fascists. Absolutely, they have a potential. But my God, we have to attack these boring problems of how to organize it, alternative modes of organization and so on. What can we really offer? Because we have to offer something. Terrible things are awaiting us. Are you aware that probably humanity will have to do horrible things like maybe even geoengineering, changing the whole atmosphere and so on? Who, how will decide all this? Biogenetics, who, how will decide all this? Now we will say this is impossible. Just to conclude. You know, when somebody says impossible, I get nervous. Because did you notice how in today's media the phrase possible, impossible functions in two totally different modes. When you speak about technology and sexuality, everything is almost becoming possible. We can be astronauts through genetic manipulation, we will be, so they tell, able to live eternally, even sexuality. I was in New York, I met a surgeon, you know what his specialty? Cutting men's penis into two. So you can do it with two women at the same time. That's possible. All is possible. But to give 0.5% more for healthcare is not possible because it will ruin our competitivity and so on and so on. So we live in a very strange society where ideology, everyday ideology, decides what appears as possible, what appears as impossible. And typically, in China 3 weeks ago, they passed a weird law, but I find it almost sympathetic. At least they still need a law. It's funny. The law, it's not a joke, I checked it with my friends. The law says that it's prohibited in the public space of movies, TV, novels, and comics, and all stories which refer to or use time travel and alternate reality. The official justification is history is serious, we cannot play stupid games with history. The truth is they want to prohibit imagining alternate reality. I'm not making fun of Chinese, but of us. Obviously, till now, the censorship is so strong that we didn't even need this prohibition. Common sense told us, no, we cannot, we would become uncompetitive and so on and so on. And that's maybe the first lesson of us theoreticians. No, we will unfortunately probably not give you concrete formulas what to do, but we can do something which is maybe even more important. We can, as it were, clear up the background, make all of us see how change is possible, because maybe there will be no change. In that case, I'm telling you, we will all be living in a world, in a world somewhere between Singapore and Berlusconi's Italy. I don't know how it is with you, I don't want to live in such a world. Thank you very much.